Welcome to the Midweek message. We're taking some lessons from the book of Ecclesiastes, and I'm reading in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 6 through 8, and I'm reading from the New International Version of the Bible. Ecclesiastes 12:6. Remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. In the first verses of Ecclesiastes chapter 12, and indeed the majority of the chapter, Solomon is encouraging his readers and believers of all time to remember their Creator, their God, in the days of their youth, when they still have some life left. And then he talks about how the aging process comes and people lose the desire for living, and desire in general fails to do things, and teeth fall out, and vision and hearing is dimmed. And Solomon is saying, remember God when you're young, before these things happen, when you have an entire life to give to Him and not just the remainder of years. And he ends verse 5 in talking about death coming on at last, and verse 6 and through and verse 7 and concluding in verse 8. He's talking about the end of life as well, following up on the aging process ending in death and a funeral procession. Let's look at these verses individually. Verse 6, remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well. You may read after some who will say these things indicate specific parts of the body that are breaking down. The silver cord being severed, the golden bowl being broken, the pitcher being shattered, the wheel broken at the well. That may well be true. There may be some analogies that could be made along those lines. But what verse 6 is talking about is before life is destroyed, before everything breaks down. Remember your Creator. Remember God before your life breaks down and very little, if anything, is left. And verse 7, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. So the life force has ebbed, people have aged, and eventually life is destroyed and they die. The funeral is held, and the dust returns to the ground. That's where it came from in the beginning. But the spirit doesn't return to the ground, it returns to God who gave it and enters the eternal state, and life is over. Remember God before your life is over. And verse 8, Solomon's conclusion that he has given in the prior chapters of the book. He reiterates, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. At the beginning of the book, Solomon mentions that he tried to find meaning in wealth and relationships and acts of even kindness, building edifices and development of the community and the kingdom, and couldn't find meaning in anything. And he reiterates in colorful language in Ecclesiastes chapter 12 that everybody's life is ending at some point anyway. And what does it all really mean? Do your best for God when you're young. Apart from Him, there is no meaning in life.